one vote. Okay, since we just starting to record, this is the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation simulation. We are simulating how a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine could make peace based on the creation of a common government that would exist side by side, the Israeli government and the Palestinian government, a secular government for the entire area. And we are not calling for the dismantling of the Israeli or the Palestinian governments. We are saying the common government will work together with the Israeli and the Palestinian government, but it would be independent and separate from the Israeli and Palestinian government, and it would be elected separately from the Israeli and the Palestinian government. It would be elected on its own with parliament, executive branch, president and vice president, and judicial branch, which would be judges, Israelis and Palestinians together, all based on equality, one person, one vote, secular government for the entire people. Today we have Professor SAMMY SMOOHA. Dr. SAMMY SMOOHA is a professor emeritus of sociology at the University of Haifa. He served as dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and president of the Israeli Sociological Society. He's a member of the Israeli Academy of Sciences and Humanities and Israel Prize Laureate in Sociology. He also served as visiting professor and a research fellow at many institutes, including Brown University, University of Michigan, UCLA, University of Washington, Brandeis University, NYU, and the United States Institute of Peace. Dr. SMOOHA studied Israeli society with focus on ethnic relations in comparative perspective. He has published widely on the internal divisions and conflict in Israel and has authored and edited numerous articles and books on Arab-Jewish relations, including some of the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. He conducts, from 2003 on, the annual index of Arab-Jewish relations in Israel. So that it is clear, we don't really know what Professor SMOOHA will say today. We are inviting people with all points of views. Our next speaker will be Professor Alon Ben Meir of NYU. He's a political science professor. After that, we will have Professor Shibli Telhami. He's also a political science professor at the University of Maryland. We will have Mona Ali Khalil on April 10. We will hear from her. She is a public international lawyer of Palestinian origin who has 25 years of United Nations experience. We will have Professor of Law John Quigley on April 24th of the Ohio State University, and Lawrence Wilkerson, the Chief of Staff, or the previous Chief of Staff of the Secretary of State Colin Powell on May 8th. On May 22nd, we will have representatives of the Parents Family Circle Family Forum. These are parents of children who died as a result of the conflict, and after they suffered tragedy in their own lives, they got together, Israelis and Palestinians together, and realized that they are the same people with the same feeling, the same aspirations, and that they need to make peace. And we will hear from them on May 22nd, 2022. The estimated time for the simulation, it usually takes about 120 minutes. We will have several segments. that will followed by 5 minutes comments by Professor SMOOHA. And then subsequently, we will have conversation with Professor SMOOHA, a conversation with him, and question and answer by the audience. And then we will have closing remarks for about 5 minutes. For those of you who came late, if you want to hear this in English, please go to the interpretation sign and click English. If you want to hear this in Arabic, please go to the interpretation sign. Or if you want to hear it in Hebrew, go to the interpretation sign and click Hebrew. Tahsin is our Arabic interpreter. Could you please make that announcement in Arabic? And Judith is our Hebrew English interpreter. Could you please make the announcement in Hebrew? Thank you. This simulation is being live streamed on TikTok for those that are interested. We have a video that explains what the IPC is all about. It takes 2.5 minutes. I would like to play it.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations. And instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So the objective of the simulation is to demonstrate how a common government based on a confederation could make peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, but not only between the Israelis and the Palestinians, with the entire neighborhood. And not only make peace, but give prosperity and stability and security to the people of Israel and Palestine together. We're not having here a historical review of who is to blame for this conflict. We are not anti-Israel or anti-Palestinians. The speaker, Professor SMOOHA, is not a representative of the IPC. He was invited to conduct a stress test. We will ask him questions about our formula for peace. This is going to be a rigorous discussion. We are pro-peace. We follow our own narrative. We do not follow the Israeli narrative or the Palestinian narrative. We believe that when this government will be created, it will have its own narrative. It will have its own outlook on the entire population, on the conflict, and how to resolve it. It's not going to follow the Israeli narrative or the Palestinian narrative. So that it's clear, we do not preclude other formulas for peace, and we are not claiming exclusivity. We're not saying that our formula is the only one, but we think it is the best one. We will ask Professor SMOOHA to use these criteria to judge our plan. Could the IPC formula attain peace? That's the first question. Is the IPC formula implementable? And the third question, is there a downside for either the Israelis or the Palestinians? Our view is that for the first and the second question, the answer is yes. For the third question, the answer is no. But we will see how Professor SMOOHA analyzed this formula for peace. We are proposing legislation. We are not the actual government. So we are only proposing legislation for demonstration purposes only. What we are showing is the tip of the iceberg. We are limited by time. It's going to be, we only have a limited time, but rest assured, there are many, many issues, many problems that a common government could solve, but we are not able to show it today, but we show it regularly every time on different simulations. We're asking you to look at the big picture, avoid technical arguments. We are here to talk about how to make peace and not how to resolve technical issues. We are asking you to refrain from comments. Questions are okay, and not only are okay, they are encouraged. What is the difference between a question and a comment? If I show you a picture of an airplane and you say, Joseph, how does this thing fly? That's a question. That's fine. That's encouraged. But if you say, I will never board an airplane because airplanes cause pollution or airplanes are unsafe, that's a comment. Please use the chat feature for your comments or wait until the end. But we are here to conduct a simulation. This is not a speech, this is a simulation, and we want to demonstrate how this common government could work. And usually we found out that comments are disruptive. It's basically you are stating your opinion. That's fine, but we are asking that you will wait until you see the whole picture and the whole formula for peace before you comment. But if you want to understand it better, we encourage questions. I don't see any, I don't think we got any new people. Could you, just in case, Tahsin, could you please make the announcement in Arabic? And Judith, could you please make the announcement in Hebrew? Thank you so much. There are certain facts and assumptions that we need to make, or we're asking you to make, in order for this simulation to work. Remember, this is a simulation. It's not a speech. It's, even though it may sound like a speech, but it's really a simulation to demonstrate how this common government could make peace. So these are facts that we all agree on, I think, that the Israeli prime minister represents the Israeli people, that the Palestinian leaders represent the Palestinian people. These are facts. However, we are asking you to assume certain assumptions, to make certain assumptions and to accept them as facts. The first one is that we held an online election on the internet, and it was done in the last 3 months. In other words, the election took place 3 months for the entire area of 14 million people in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. That 5 million people voted. Out of the 14 million, 5 million people voted. 3 million Palestinian voted and 2 million Israeli voted. That the president received 1.5 million votes, and the vice president received 1.3 million votes, and they will rotate after 2 years. So I want you to assume that I, Joseph, an Israeli, was elected. And by the way, I'm not planning to run for president. That's not my aspiration. It's just that I am making it clear. It's easier for me to present this simulation when I am the president. So, but I'm not intending to be the president. I'm not going to run. I'm not even qualified based on the Constitution. So I want you to assume that I received 1.5 million votes and a Palestinian lady received 1.3 million votes, and we will rotate. I will become president for the first 2 years. She will become president afterwards, after 2 years, and I will become vice president. So we will rotate after 2 years. But we each have constitutional duties. So the president and the vice president, if you read the Constitution, both have constitutional duties. I also want you to assume that 300 parliament members were elected. Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, Jerusalem, and Israel. 300 parliament members were elected. That each parliament member represents 47,000 people. So some were Israelis, some were Palestinians. You see, it doesn't really need to be exactly 150 by 150 because of the 55% requirement to pass legislation. So does anyone have any questions regarding those assumptions?
I just want to ask if I am a member of this very important occasion. My name is Nabil Shaat. I came in a little late.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, Nabil.
Hi.
What is your question?
No, I don't have a question yet. I just didn't see my name, and I wanted to make sure that I'm a participant.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Professor SMOOHA, do you have any questions regarding these assumptions?
I'm puzzled, really. I mean, this structure, the third governing structure, will come about after you have two states. I mean, Palestinian state and Jewish state, or when? When is it?
Well, we just concluded the election, and 300 parliament members were elected. That's the assumption. It finished. We had 3 months of election, and they ended today, and that's the assumptions. And I was elected president, and a Palestinian lady was elected vice president. There is no two-state, but the election took place under those assumptions. Do you have difficulty?
Under present conditions, you are talking about under present conditions.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you very well.
Is it under the existing conditions in which there is only one state, the Israel? Do you assume that?
No, let me go back to the assumptions. The assumptions are these. that we held an election for 3 months. So February 20th is today. They ended today. And I was announced as the winner. There is a government of Israel. There is the Palestinian governments. They still exist. But we just ended an election. 5 million people voted in the election. The election took place on the internet. 3 million Palestinians voted. 2 million Israelis voted. I received 1.5 million votes. The Palestinian lady received 1.3 million votes, and 300 parliament members were elected. These are the assumptions that I want you to work with. My question,
Joseph, may I intervene? I think you misunderstood him. The only question that he has is the premise is first that there is a Palestinian state as parallel to the Israeli states, and the answer is no.
I understood him perfectly.
Okay, so the answer is no.
I understood him perfectly. I'm not asking about the Israeli government or the Palestinian government. I'm saying they exist. I am asking about the assumptions.
The assumptions are okay.
You are accepting them.
Mhm.
Professor SMOOHA,
Yes,
you are accepting those assumptions.
I'm accepting these assumptions, but I want to be clear that we are talking about the existing situation in which there is an Israeli government, a Palestinian Authority, a governor in Gaza, okay? And now we are adding also the Confederation. So we have four
Correct.
governments.
But we didn't say anything about governor in Gaza. We are,
Whatever.
but we'll go into that.
Whatever.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the audience regarding those assumptions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Considering the announcement made in this previous week by a couple of people, I think Berlin, who consider that the Confederation that they conceive of already has decided to include, the annexation of Sector C to the government of
What is the question, Professor Dr. Weisfeld?
So the question is, surely, is this not a constitutional method of deciding such matters and does not presume to have decided anything as a precondition that we are entering into a confederation with its own decision mechanism and that there is no decision that has been made in a prior way?
Yeah, there are no, we just held an election. The parliament has not made any decisions yet. We just, okay. So I will ask some of you, first of all, we need volunteers at this stage. In order to demonstrate this simulation, I need someone, preferably people who did not participate as volunteers. We need to demonstrate how the Israeli government will react, how the Palestinian government will react, and how Hamas government will react. So therefore, I need volunteers to act in those capacities. And basically, when you volunteer to be either Israeli government, prime minister, or Hamas leader, or Palestinian Authority leader, you will be given a veto power over the legislation that the parliament will pass. So do I have a volunteer to be Israeli prime minister?
Sure. So I've done it before.
You've done it before. Do we have someone else? Do we have someone who has not done it?
Well, I haven't done it, but I have to leave in an hour, so it won't be good.
Fine.
It won't be good.
Okay, so you will be the Israeli Prime Minister, Avi Appelstein.
But I have to leave in an hour. It's clear.
Yeah, we
Less
will,
than an hour.
we will be done with the legislation by then. Okay.
Okay.
And do we have a Hamas leader?
No, it's
Someone-
fine.
Do we have a volunteer to be Hamas leader?
Yes, I did want it closed. Sorry.
Is this Charles?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was talking to something in the room and I was unmuted, but
Okay.
if you don't have somebody else to be
Does
Hamas leader,
anyone-
I'll do it.
Do we have a volunteer to be Hamas leader? I need a volunteer, guys, to be Hamas leader. It's not gonna bite you. You're only given a veto power from the Hamas perspective. You will have to assume the political personality of a Hamas leader.
Okay, I can do it, but I need to leave in about half an hour or so. Is that too soon?
Okay, then we'll.
I can do it, and I can stay for the whole session.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
so
better.
I've participated before, but never as a Hamas leader.
Okay, so Jesse, you'll be the Hamas leader. I need a Palestinian Authority president. Okay, what's his name or her name? I'm sorry? Edward? Okay, I don't see it, but I want you to be, okay, E. What?
This is Ed Corrigan, but I prefer not to be the prime minister, just a member of parliament for
Okay,
the West
so-
Bank.
Oh, okay, so I need a president. I need a president of Palestine, president of the Palestinian Authority.
Nabil raised his hand.
Nabil,
raised-
okay,
He's raising his hand.
okay. The rest of you, I will ask you to become either Israeli parliament member or Palestinian parliament member. Remember, we elected 300 parliament members. So you will have to, and I'll try to make it a little easier for you. Okay, so this is the map of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, and Jerusalem. So you would, I'm asking some of you to be Israelis and some of you to be Palestinian. You don't need to tell me right now who you are, but you'll decide, you'll have to be honest with yourself and decide, is your area, let's say in Gaza, where you would be exclusive, your 47,000 constituents will be exclusively Palestinians, or is your area in Jerusalem, or where your constituents would be some Israelis and some Palestinians? In other words, you can have a mixed area. Or are you in Tel Aviv, where in all likelihood your constituents are only Israelis? And so now let's take a sample vote so that we see how many we have. So let's take a sample vote. Dan, if you can do the vote, and I'll ask just so that we can practice this. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members vote. So we see how many we have. Just vote yes. We're not voting on any legislation yet, just on who you are. So we see how many we have. Okay, if you identify as a Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Okay, so I see we have 10 Palestinian. And let's have the Israelis vote. Israeli parliament members, please vote. Okay. We have 8 Israelis. Now, when the simulation goes on, if you want to decide, some want to sit on the fence and see what's happening, that's fine. You can vote later as either Israeli or Palestinian, but you cannot be both. You cannot be Israeli and Palestinian. And also the Prime Minister of Israel, the Hamas leader, and the PA leader are not allowed to vote because you're a different government. All right. The first order of business is we need to ratify the Constitution. After we ratify the Constitution, we will have a vote, and then we'll go to Professor SMOOHA and ask for his comments. So bear with me, Professor SMOOHA. I know that you're anxious to give your opinions, and I'm anxious to hear you, but bear with me, please. We believe that Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. So this means that constitutionally, we agree not to interfere with any agreements between the Israeli government and the Palestinian government. They can agree to whatever we want, whatever they want, and we constitutionally are prohibited from interfering with those agreements. We will recognize any agreements between the Israeli government and the Palestinian government. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights and freedom for all. Page 2. And by the way, this is an explanation of the actual Constitution. The actual Constitution is in our website. We voluntarily give the legislator and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. So that's important. If we pass legislation that has to do with the domain and control of either the Israeli or the Palestinian governments, we voluntarily give them a veto power. We say, we pass the legislation, but you can veto it. If it doesn't suit you, you feel that it's not in your interest, you're allowed to veto it. And that's what we're going to simulate today. We believe in a separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decision based on nationality. Does anyone have any questions? Questions, not comments. Questions, please, regarding the Constitution. Okay, I hear no.
Just to clarify.
Okay,
so
you're the Hamas leader.
Yeah, but just for the rules of the representative of the districts, there are going to be some districts that have some Palestinian and some Israeli. It might be 60-40 or 70-30. They might not all be 100-0. Correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
There's a question. What do you do with the Palestinians that are Israelis? Where do they fit into this? Do they fit in the Israeli side of the equation or the Palestinian side of the equation? That's sort of a critical question.
Well, they can vote for Israeli or they can vote for Palestinian. They are not bound to vote. This is similar to the first question. But as far as running, so there are two aspects. Voting You can vote for Israeli, you can vote for a Palestinian in your district. For your district if you have an Israeli running and a Palestinian running and you are Israeli, you can vote for a Palestinian. If you are Palestinian, you can vote for Israeli. It doesn't matter. As far as running, you will have to announce whether you are Israeli or Palestinian, and you will be judged by the voters whether you are Israeli or Palestinians. Any other question? Charles, I see you raise your hand. Please ask your question.
Yeah, so I think it would be critical in terms of the way the districts are drawn to avoid any kind of gerrymandering. I'm wondering,
Charles, there is no gerrymandering because it really makes no difference how many Palestinians are elected or how many Israelis are elected. Let's assume there are 160 Palestinian elected and 140 Israeli are elected. But in order to pass legislation, you need 55% of the 160 and 55% of the 140. So there is no need to gerrymandering. It doesn't give any benefits if there are more Israelis or more Palestinians. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no questions, let's take a vote to ratify the Constitution. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Okay, so we had originally 10 parliament members, Palestinians, only 9 voted. So the majority of the Palestinian parliament members voted to ratify the Constitution. Let's go to Israeli parliament members. Please vote on the Constitution. Okay, we had 8 Israeli, but now we have 10 Israeli, and all of them voted in favor of ratifying the Constitution. So thank you so much. We have, under the assumptions, we have a government, we have a president, we have 300 parliament members, and we have the first constitution in the history of humanity when it comes to Israel, Palestine, a common constitution for the people of Israel and Palestine. Together, give us a big hand and congratulations to us. The whole world is watching us. And let's go now to Professor SMOOHA and ask for his comments. I'm gonna stop sharing and let's hear from Professor, I'm sorry.
Okay. I approve of the Constitution. It's based on equality and cooperation. I have no problem with this personally, but I don't think it's workable.
Why?
I mean, because in order to arrive at that, you need first to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Why?
Why? Because any Confederate.
But Professor SMOOHA, you accepted the assumptions, and now you're saying you're ignoring the assumptions.
No, I'm not ignoring. You asked me before if it is something implementable, right? If it's workable.
Correct.
If there is such a constitution, I have no problem with that. I am for a Palestinian state. I am for equality. I am for confederal government, as you put it. But if you ask me if it is something that you can achieve without resolving first the Palestinian question or the Israeli-Arab conflict, I'll tell you it's impossible. This can be agreed upon after you resolve the questions of the Israeli-Arab conflict.
And
Now,
what
this-
is the basis? What is the basis that you are making that statement, that very strong statement that it's not possible unless we first resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
because you want the two sides to cooperate when they disagree sharply on the issues of the conflict, which is the right of return of the Palestinian refugees, borders, the 1967 borders, the question of Jerusalem.
Are you saying that it's not possible to have an election?
Yes.
Why?
You will not find, let's take the Israelis first. You will not find, say, 1.5 million or 2 million Israelis who
But
will
you
participate
accepted
in such
that,
election.
you just accepted that assumption, and now you're saying the assumptions are wrong.
I said, if this is possible, I agree with. I am
It's not a
for it.
matter of whether you agree or not. It's not a personal issue. It's a question of, are the assumptions wrong? Could the assumptions become
assumptions-
reality?
The assumptions are right. If you establish a Palestinian state, I mean, if you reach first agreement between Israel and the Palestinian to establish a Palestinian state,
Okay,
and
and
then
that's
you can
where I'm
the whole
trying to
thing.
see, where is your expertise would tell you that it first needs to have resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You're basically saying that in order to resolve the Palestinian, you first need the Israeli government and the Palestinian government, who failed for 74 years. They first need to resolve the conflict, and without that, nothing else can happen. And we are saying the Israeli and the Palestinian governments are the problem. They're not the solution. You are saying they are the solution. And we are saying they are the problem. And we are saying we can solve the problem by creating our own government, separate, independent of these problematic governments. We're not calling for their dismantling, but we are saying you can have another approach to solve the problem.
No, your assumption is that this kind of government, okay, this will facilitate the agreement to establish agreement between the two sides. Right?
No, that's not part of the assumption. You are just, there is no, the assumption
Okay.
is that this is a common government, and it's not, it has a completely different perspective on the conflict. It doesn't have to accept the Israeli conflict or the Palestinian conflict perspective. It doesn't have to accept the Israeli perspective or the Palestinian perspective, and it doesn't have to resolve the issue based on those perspectives. We have our own perspective.
Okay, so let me put it the other way around.
Okay.
Suppose this works, okay?
Yes.
Now you go to this parliament and you have, say, decisions, and then either you cannot get decisions because you will not get 55% in each side, or you'll have a veto power of the president,
Okay.
of the prime minister.
Well, that's what we're here
So
to
then
simulate.
you will get nothing out of that. That's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
Okay, so
Because you haven't worked on the issues of the conflict.
Okay, so you're saying that that we will not get 55%, or the Israeli or the Palestinian government will veto it, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So that's what we're here to simulate. Let's go on. I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll go to the next issue.
Can I say the whole point of what I thought of the
Okay.
IPC was
Hold on a
foster
second,
diplomacy.
Jesse,
I thought that was the whole point.
I'm sorry. So we are now voting on the first issue, the Israeli-Palestinian parliament. We want the Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel and West Bank and Gaza. We are declaring that. And we hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas. This is our first legislation. It does not require a veto power because it does not affect the sovereignty or the domain and control of Israel and Palestine. This is our own agreement within our own parliament to give a veto power. Does anyone have any questions regarding that veto power? Okay, hearing no questions.
Actually, I have a question. You have two governments for the Palestinian. You got the Palestinian Authority and you got Hamas, which is sort of an Islamic-based movement, which is split. So the secular Palestinian Authority is supposed to be secular. Hamas is Islamic.
What is the question?
Well, you've got two governments for the Palestinians. Why split them? There only should be one government for the Palestinians.
Well, because we have our own perspective. We want to make peace. We represent the 14 million people, and we understand that our limitation is the Israeli government, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas. Because we understand that in order for us to be able to make peace, we need to give them a veto power. I am the president, and this is my analysis. It doesn't really matter that there are two entities or one entity. It matters what is the best way to make peace. And this is what we are voting on. So let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, do you support the declaration to intend to grant the veto power?
We have hands up. We should add to the questions.
Okay, I'll ask that after. Okay. All right, so the overwhelming majority of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of giving a veto power to the to all three entities. Let's go to the, well, let's have the person ask a question. Dan, can you, okay, you're voting, okay, Israeli parliament members, could you please vote on this issue? Okay, and the polling, share the results. Overwhelming of the Israeli parliament members agree to give a veto power to all three entities. So let's go to the person had a question. Who is the person who had the question?
Well, there are two hands up. I had one.
Could you ask your question?
Yes, I agree with Abraham. Hamas, why would Hamas?
What is the question? No
the question
comment,
is, the question is, why would Hamas have a veto power and the ultra-Orthodox in Bnei Brak not have a veto power?
Because we believe that Hamas controls Gaza and we want to make peace. We have 2 million constituents in Gaza, and we believe that we would not be able to make peace and give them prosperity unless we cooperate with Hamas. What is the next question? Whoever has the next question. Okay, so Professor SMOOHA, could we hear your comments regarding this?
There are hands up.
Okay, you need to speak.
Jesse Bevan has his hand up, but I think it was from before. Could you lower your hand, Jesse?
Okay, so Professor SMOOHA, could you please comment? I'm going to stop sharing. I want to hear from Professor SMOOHA regarding what we just seen, and that is that we gave overwhelmingly Israeli and Palestinian parliament members agree to give veto power to the three governments.
That's beautiful. This means real equality of the three governments. But I don't see that the Palestinian Authority will accept that, to give a veto power to the Hamas in Gaza.
They're not given enough, they're not being asked. They're not being asked. We are the government of the whole area.
Okay, no problem.
We're not asking the Israeli government or the Palestinian.
So
We
it is-
decided on our own. We are the government.
Okay, it's
All
fair.
right, so let's go to the next issue. And I'm gonna share the screen again. Then, so this legislation will deal with exactly what Professor SMOOHA said about the government's not allowing or vetoing everything. So let's deal with that. Teaching tolerance and understanding. Both educational systems to teach tolerance in their public schools. Devote a certain number of hours for both sides to teach the history of the Israelis and the Palestinians. Prioritizing teaching Arabic and Hebrew in public schools to achieve proficiency of both languages by Israeli and Palestinian students. Create a mutual task force to ensure the teaching of both languages. Educators to draft textbooks together and arrange for a regular exchange of teachers. Public media on both sides to provide fair and equal coverage daily for teaching tolerance. The IPC will facilitate to ensure that both sides are fairly represented. We hereby submit this legislation to the Israeli government and Palestinian government and Hamas. We bestow upon them a veto power, which may be exercised in the next 60 days. So this is a legislation that does affect the domain and control of the Israeli and the Palestinian governments. So first, does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation? Okay, I hear no questions. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote. Palestinian parliament only. Okay. The overwhelming number of Palestinian parliaments who voted and are present voted in favor of this legislation. Let's have the Israeli parliament members vote. Okay, publish the results. The overwhelming number of Israeli parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go now to the Prime Minister of Israel. Are you going to veto this legislation?
Well, I personally for sure not. I guess that Mr. Bennett would veto it, and I guess that his successor Lapid wouldn't veto it. I don't think that Bennett will let anything, Bennett and his government will let anything.
So you are Mr. Bennett at this time. Are you vetoing this legislation?
If I'm Mr. Bennett, I'm vetoing this legislation.
All right. Well, didn't you always said that one of the reasons for having the conflict is because the Palestinians are not teaching tolerance towards Israel? And
yes,
here we have legislation that requires your system and the Palestinian system to teach tolerance, and you are vetoing this?
Yes, I'm very sure that I always argued that Palestinians should teach this kind of direction, but I always was also, as a Bennett, for that we want to recognize the Palestinian story. So that's the problem. I don't want that there will be.
What you're saying, Mr. President, Prime Minister.
So
what is the reason that you are vetoing this legislation?
The reason that I don't want that the Palestinian agenda will come in public school in Israel as a Bennett now. That's why.
Okay, but we are not teaching the Palestinian agenda. You did not read this legislation correct. This is teaching both sides the history of the Israeli and the Palestinians.
That's exactly what I mean. What you call the history in Israel is not so welcomed. The Palestinian history
All
is
right,
not so welcomed.
So you are vetoing this legislation. Let's go to the Hamas leader. Mr. Hamas leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
So my question is this legislation going to provide funds for this expanded educational opportunity, or am I going to have to somehow come up with the money with the blockade?
No, this says that it is managed by the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. You will not have to put any funds.
Okay, so to my people that this is just going to be expanded education, it's not going to be Zionist propaganda and things like that. I have no skin in the game. I'm not going to put any kind of resources into this. This is all supporting the Gaza Strip, correct?
You're not going to be asking to put any money in it, but the Palestinian children will be exposed to the Israeli history, and Palestinians will be Israelis will be exposed to Palestinian history. That's the whole purpose. Are you going to veto this?
Oh, I will not veto this, since this.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just want to end the blockade and the sanctions. Bye.
Okay. What about the Palestinian Authority leader? Are you going to veto this? Palestinian Authority president, are you going to veto this?
That's Nabil.
Nabil, are you going to veto this legislation? Nabil?
Like he left, he's not in the meeting anymore.
Okay. All right. So now we are, since we have a veto, we are going to request
Joseph,
reconsideration.
I'm very sorry. I have to leave also. I said it before that,
Okay,
that I
no
can't.
problem.
So you have to look another prime minister. I wanted is better. I hope he's better than Bennett. So I will look at the recording. Thank you very much for this time.
Okay. Is anyone else willing to be the Prime Minister of Israel?
I'll do it if no one else wants to.
Okay, Charles. And is Nabil in? Okay, so we are, since the Prime Minister of Israel vetoed the legislation, I am proposing the following. The Parliament of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation is concerned with what we believe unnecessary veto. We are pleading with the Israeli and Palestinian leaders to consider the Okay. You need to say it in English so that Dan can deal with it. We are pleading with the Israeli and Palestinian leaders to consider the legislation will have on Israelis and Palestinians. Okay, so if you guys can all close your speaker to help the interpretation. We appreciate your willingness to participate in this process and understand your obligation towards your constituents. We believe that upon reconsideration, you are likely to remove the veto. We are open to reconsider any specific objections to amend the legislation and address legislation. So do we have a Prime Minister? So Mr. Prime Minister, do you have any specific request for us to amend the tolerance issue?
I think if there was a representative of the Knesset, of the Israeli government point of view, that was present during these co-educational programs that
But you want the Israeli Knesset member to be in each classroom?
no, I'm just saying that a representative that will be appointed by the government will help oversee this program so that the government has a more timely ability to step in. It's not being carried out according to their wishes.
Okay, so basically you want more, you want to have some control over what is being taught.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's have, I'm going to assume that that would
Could I
also-
make a proposal?
Yes.
Since we have a situation, could we propose that we institute a roundtable, a dialogue between representatives of the IPC, the Palestinian and Israeli authorities, possibly open to members of civil society, to agree a common platform? And if that can help formulate a system that is acceptable also to the Israeli Prime Minister, then the IPC could vote on it.
Yeah, well, that's what, yeah. Okay, these are really technical issues. We are asking you to look at the big picture. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Can
now
I make a
that,
proposal?
let's go to Professor SMOOHA and ask his opinion.
Can I make a proposal?
No. Let's go to Professor SMOOHA. We'll wait until the end and then you can make your proposal. Professor SMOOHA. Is he with us?
He's muted. Unmute yourself, Professor SMOOHA. Okay.
I don't understand how Hamas leader did not veto this proposal. Simply is unthinkable, inconceivable that Hamas leader will not veto. That's first.
What is your
Second,
evidence that he will not veto it?
because it's against their ideology. I mean, they don't accept Israel. You know, for them, Israel is an evil. I mean, how can they will teach in the schools, you know, tolerance of the evil? That's the idea, you know, from their point of view. So, but I think that this is very good example, what I said before, that you come with a good idea, the idea of tolerance and teaching tolerance in schools and so forth. It's very good thing, but it's not acceptable because you haven't resolved the conflict first.
Well, didn't Hamas said that they have no problem? Didn't Hamas said that they have no problem with the Jewish people, that they have problem with the government of Israel. And this gives them an opportunity to be able to work with the Jewish people without the necessity of working with the government of Israel.
They didn't say that. What they have a problem with the state of Israel.
Correct.
They have a problem with the existence of a Jewish state.
Right.
That's the problem, not with the Jewish people.
Right.
Excuse me, there's a misunderstanding. That's a misunderstanding because Hamas has offered mutual recognition, you know, with the government of Israel. There's no problem.
All right, let's go to the next issue. We're not going to argue.
Can I make my comment on this issue?
Could you, I said at the beginning, no comments until the end. So because I don't want to kidnap this conversation. Please wait until the end. And we're going to go to the next legislation, Joint Economic Zone between Israel and Gaza, exclusive IPC management and control, common economy, education, industry, agriculture, sewer treatment, desalination plants, solar farm, wind power, and green energy, international airport and seaport, equally accessible to the Israeli and Palestinians. This is being given a veto power to the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Does anyone have any questions on that legislation? Let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Okay. So the overwhelming majority of the Palestinian parliament voted in favor of this legislation. Let's have the Israeli parliament members please vote. Okay. The overwhelming majority of the Israeli parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, are you going to veto this legislation? Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Don't think too much. Let's go to the
Okay,
Hamas
all right,
leader.
all right. No, I won't veto.
Okay. Hamas leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
Definitely will not veto opening up an economic zone.
And is Nabil back?
No, he's gone.
Okay. All right. So now let's go to Professor SMOOHA and ask for his opinion regarding this legislation.
I think it's very good legislation because it has to do with resources and the responsibility of the people. And I think this might work once you have peace agreement.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When you say peace agreement, you mean two states?
Yes, for me, I am a strong believer of two-state solution. And I feel that one-state solution is not going to be. And what the right wing in Israel, the political right in Israel, when they want to keep Israel undivided, you know, the land of Israel or Palestine undivided, really what they are doing, they are building an apartheid state.
All right. So isn't it a little bit isn't it a little bit outrageous to say after 74 years of attempting to make two states and the United Nations voted on two states and many governments tried to make two states and the situation between Israelis and Palestinians got a lot worse than it was 74 years ago? Isn't that a little outrageous to say we first need to have two states when it failed so badly, and it proved not only failed badly, but it made things worse for the Israeli and the Palestinian people. And to say, well, we first need to have two states, we first need to have our solution that failed again and again and again as a prerequisite for any other solutions.
First of all, the idea of two states only was for 20 years, not more than 20 years.
Well, the United Nations
and even in the Oslo Accords,
the United Nations voted on two states in 47.
Yes, but that failed in 1949. That failed, okay? And then from 1967 on till I think even, I don't know, you know, I mean, maybe even in the Oslo Accords, there was no two-state solution. There were only acceptance of non-violence and we'll have negotiations, recognizing each other and so forth. but there was no real acceptance of the idea of two states. So the new states is not a long story. It's, I think, quite recent, and I don't think there is any other workable solution. One state is not workable. Suppose the two states is not something which you can achieve.
Do you see this formula as one state?
No, I mean, I don't think it's this formula is both bad and unworkable. One state. So I'm talking about two states. But say if two
but
states.
The formula we are proposing, are you equating that with one state?
No, I'm not equating it with one state. It's more closer to two states than, or three states than in one state. Of course, this is why I think once you resolve or you reach agreement about the issues, and you establish a Palestinian state, you can have a confederacy. I am not against confederacy. I'm for confederacy because it brings both sides, together, not rather completely separate. Because separation, we have too much of separation. We don't need to increase separation.
Let me ask you something. Let's say you have a medical issue and you go to a surgeon and the surgeon tells you, you need a surgery. And you go to another doctor and the doctor says, well, surgery could be good, but before the surgery, you may want to try to eat well and exercise. That may avoid the surgery. Would you recommend to the patient that he would eat well and exercise in order possibly to avoid the surgery? Or would you say, no, wait until the surgery and then you start eating well and exercising?
Yes, the other. First, you have the surgery.
You first do the surgery.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this is the real solution.
All right. So you will tell him, go ahead, continue to eat bad, don't exercise until the surgery, and then only exercise and eat well after the surgery.
You have to have surgery because this is the solution. Now, of course, try to eat well and do other things, but this is not going to solve your problem.
What if the
surgery will solve your problem?
And what if the surgeon does not have a surgery room and there is no hospital? Would you still tell him to wait for the surgery?
We'll work hard to create a surgery room. We try many things in order to make this possible. Now, what is on the international agenda? What is on the Palestinian agenda? I mean, the Palestinian Authority agenda. It is two states. That's what is on the agenda. One state is not on the agenda.
But at one time you have to admit,
on the agenda.
At one time you have to take responsibility for your failure. You can't just say we failed again and again and again, but we have the audacity to demand that our solution will be the only solution. That's audacious.
I will tell you what I think about the solution to the conflict.
You're not answering
the solution.
my question.
No, I'm answering your question. The solution to is not by persuasion campaigns or all kinds of ideas, because the Israeli Jews, and they have the key to the conflict, because they are the stronger party to the conflict. The Israeli Jews now, they live with the conflict. They are on the comfort zone of the conflict. They are afraid of going to another situation, say a Palestinian state, because they are fearful, of changing this. They think this will be worse, to have a Palestinian state than the current situation. And I don't think by grassroots campaigns, like, this, your campaign, it's your campaign, or other ideas, by education, or by all kinds of grassroots groups or efforts, this will solve the situation. The only way to solve the situation is to create a reality in which Israeli Jews will be out of their comfort zone. So they will reconsider, the solution of two states or Palestinian state. Now, how this will come about? Not by education and not by Hasbara, the campaign of information, all this kind of thing. Only if you change the situation. How you change the situation? Say by international sanctions on Israel, on which the Israeli Jews will feel this in their daily life, or
Are all
by
Israeli Jews think the same?
No, they are not. They don't think the same. But most Israeli Jews today, 60% and more, are on the right wing. More than 60%. They define themselves as right wingers.
But
That's
under the assumption that we gave you is that 1.5 million Israelis voted and 2 million Israelis voted. Are you saying that it's unreasonable to expect that 2 million Israelis would vote?
These people who voted are on the left. All these people in your simulation now, who 100% or 83% who observe this is self-selection. People who come to this simulation are on the political left. So they are already agree to all these assumptions. The idea is to persuade the right wingers, not the leftists. Okay, this is the problem. So all these parliament members are on the left.
But this formula ignores the extremists on both sides. There are extremists on both sides. This formula says the reasonable people on both sides get together and ignore the unreasonable people. That's what a democracy is about.
But they are a minority in Israel among Jews. They are a minority.
Right. They are a minority. I agree with you.
Yes.
But they are also a minority on the Palestinian side. But they are when they are together, they are very powerful. When
they are not powerful. No, they are not powerful. No.
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
Let's open up for questions. Thank you. So raise your hand. I know Olivia wants to ask a question, so I'll add her to. So let's start with Giacomo, and then Charles, and then Len, and then Jesse, and then Olivia.
My just comment would be that this is not only, we can call it a grassroots effort, but it's not only grassroots. It is a well-conceived, and you can see it almost as having its roots in international diplomacy, where we have, like the European Parliament, where is an institution that was created by an international treaty, and it represents the people of Europe, and they vote and in a constructive way, different countries, conflicting opinion. So I would object to calling it simply a grassroots movement.
And what is your question, Giacomo?
Just a comment.
Okay. Professor SMOOHA, do you want to respond to that?
The European Union was not created by a grassroots effort. It was created from the top down, not from the bottom up. And
exactly.
I'm saying this is what is going to happen also in Israel. If the right wing will have another leadership, okay, like Netanyahu, which is a strong leader among the right wing in Israel. If Netanyahu and other governing elites, they reach a decision that they are going to have a Palestinian state, allow a Palestinian state, you will see they will persuade their voters. They will have the majority. So the question is not that all kinds of grassroots efforts, they will change the situation. You need a macro change, either on the leadership sides or by changing the life situation of Israeli Jews, that they will stop living in their comfort zone of the conflict.
Okay, Charles, can you ask your question? So it's Charles, Len, Jesse, and Olivia.
Professor SMOOHA, I would like to draw a historic parallel and then ask you my question. In the fall of the Berlin Wall, you had a community that was separated, and they had some communication back and forth electronically. And this got to the point where the people themselves, not waiting for their leaders, actually attacked the wall between them with sledgehammers. Now, my question is that if those people had waited for their leaders, who were beholden to international outside interests, to take down that wall, do you think it ever would have fallen? So the question is, in this example, in this platform that we are talking about here, granted, it is a minority among both parties, but it is a possibility for those two parties to work together to bring down those barriers that separate them.
I think to draw the, I'm not saying that there is no such thing as popular revolt. You know, it happens, you have revolutions and all this stuff. I'm not saying that it's not, but not on the, I'm now analyzing the Israeli-Palestinian case. Not, I'm not over generalizing. You can have, of course, you can have a grassroots movement who change the situation. I don't see this movement emerging among Israelis, Israeli Jews and Palestinians. I'm not seeing that. This is why I reached the conclusion. I believed in many years in Peace Now movement and many other, you know, groups which I participated in. Now I after so many years, I reached the conclusion that you need a macro change, which will come from above, not from the bottom. Now, Eastern Germany was part of the collapse of hegemony, of the Soviet hegemony in Eastern Europe. It's not, and they knew that Western Germany, they are part of Western Germany. I mean, the wall was artificial, was part of the Cold War. So once they liberated themselves from the Soviets, they could join, and you have there was no point in on the wall. In Israel, it's not the situation, not at all. I see it completely different.
All right, let's go to Len. After Len, Jesse. After Jesse, Olivia. After Olivia, Edward.
Hey, Professor, you commented that the way to pressure Israel is to withhold things from Israel. Now, I'd like to ask you the opposite question. What does the international world or anybody do to convince the Arabs to stop pay for play, for example, and to stop Hamas from firing rockets into Israel? How do you convince them that this is not helpful to the situation?
The way to persuade them is to allow a Palestinian state, that Israel will allow a Palestinian state, so they will see the hope of ending occupation. They will have a hope that there is another way of doing it. But you are right. I'm not strong believers how you convince the Palestinians or the Hamas how to. No, the Hamas changed their constitution to allow for 2 states for this, but that's just a talk. They did this just to persuade the international opinion, but no, they are not really believing in that. So, but we have our partners really is the PLO, not the Hamas. But I don't know. I cannot. I have no idea. The only way to give them hope, to give them alternative. Now they don't have any alternative.
Well, what I'm asking for is what are the Arabs doing to give Israel hope that there will be a peaceful country if they get it, if they get their own country? What are the Arabs doing to give Israel hope?
They are doing little.
That's right.
Okay.
So wouldn't the Confederation give hope to both sides?
I don't believe that you can establish now a confederation of the type that you are suggesting in the simulation. There is no way to establish such thing.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
are you saying that it's not possible to have an election?
Not possible, no.
Why
Israel
not?
Israel will not allow that. No.
Okay.
You know what happened? I'll give you an
what
example.
Is the basis? What is the basis upon which you are making a very important statement? You are saying Israel will not allow it.
Yes.
What is the basis upon which you are making that statement?
Because Israeli government will not compromise their sovereignty. This is a step against Israeli sovereignty. I will give you an example.
Well,
the Arabs in Israel.
Have you seen the Israeli government try to stop this?
Yes, well, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
In 1980, the Arabs of Israel wanted to elect their own leadership. They have a follow-up committee, but it's not elected. And they said, look, why we should not go and elect our leaders? So we will have elected representative. Okay, so they called for a parliament. We will have a kind of parliament. People will vote for it and so forth. It's all voluntary. 1980, the Arabs in Israel were very weak minority by then. You know what happened?
Well, this is a government that they were thinking of creating to replace the Israeli government.
No, not to replace the Israeli government. To have a representative elected body of the Arabs in Israel.
And
That's
they
all.
do. They are part of the Israeli parliament, aren't they?
Not the parliament. They wanted not outside parliament. Outside. They simply want to elect a body which will be elected voluntarily, and this body will have legitimacy as a representative of Arabs in Israel. The government of Israel issued a veto. They said this is subversive. This is compromise our sovereignty. Will not let a body like Arabs in Israel elect a legitimate body. And now you want to, they will have 1.5 million people in Israel. They will elect a body which will compete, from the government of Israel point of view, will compete with them. They will not allow this to happen.
What did the Israeli government do in order to prevent that?
Simply issue an order. The security office, the National Security Office, will simply issue an order to ban it.
And
this will be considered subversive
has the Israeli government issued an order for us to stop the creation of a common government?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
They haven't issued. And if they did, you are disobeying the order.
They don't count you. This is not a real, you can make all kinds of suggestions, simulations. That's nothing. They are not stupid. But if you try to organize,
But we
they
did
will
have,
ban it.
we did have an election in 2012, and they
What
did not
election?
issue an order to stop it.
I didn't even know about it.
Correct.
If
But
it
they
was a
knew-
real serious one, I will know about it.
But they knew about it.
Nothing. If it was a serious thing, they will ban it. I'm telling you.
Well, they had no idea it's not going to be a serious thing. We did have the election.
Yes.
We had a
Okay.
full-page ad in the New York Times about
Yes.
the election.
Yes.
900 parliament members signed up, Israelis and Palestinians. And we did have the election from December 12th to December 30th. And they did know about it, and they did not issue an order.
How many people participated?
In the election,
Yes.
600.
600. Okay. No problem.
Yeah, but they didn't know.
600 people
Wait.
represent nobody.
No, they didn't know that 600 will participate. It could have, since it was on the internet, you could have had
Because-
3 million in one day. They did not try to
no,
stop it.
No, because they got all kinds of evaluations, all kinds of things that they knew it's better not to deal with it because it will be counterproductive, because it's not serious.
Okay.
So we'll not deal with it.
So in my opinion, if they do get involved and try to stop it, that would be the best thing for the Confederation, because it would expose the Israeli government as unable to make peace and making orders that are reasonable for a reasonable solution, and they do not have any other way to make peace. So if they issue such an order, first of all, do they have the legal authority to issue
Of
such
course
an order?
they have a legal authority.
What is the legal
Israel is
authority?
defensive. It's a defensive, what called defensive democracy.
What is the
They
legal
have all
authority?
the
Where is the
authority to ban
statute?
anything.
Okay, Professor SMOOHA, where is
Yes.
the statute in Israel code system that says that this would be illegal?
Illegal, anything which is considered by the government as subversive can be banned. And this kind of thing
Okay.
will be
So-
easily considered.
Okay, but
as
this government
subversive.
is not subversive. It recognizes the government of Israel and the Palestinian government. It says we want to cooperate with them. So it's not
Yes.
subversive.
Yes, but you come with a body that will be considered by Israeli government as competitive of governing, and they will not let it.
Okay.
Look, I mean, this is
So-
my
so-
consideration.
so
What
it-
I mean, I
So
can-
are you saying that the Israeli government is afraid of competition?
yes, who is who governs? Yes, of course.
What's
Of
their,
course.
why would they be afraid of competition? They always told their people that they will do whatever they can to make peace, that they will turn
Yes,
every rock to make peace.
That's correct.
And they failed
But
to
this
make peace.
body, this
And they
body
failed to
comes
make
from all
peace.
kinds. I mean, I'm trying to explain or to think what will be how a government of Israel, which leans to the right wing in any case, will be leaning to a right wing.
Well-
How they will think of that? They will think about it as subversive. They are not afraid of banning it and the international sanction. No, there will be no international sanction. They feel they are the rulers, they are the governor. They will not let any other body, to participate.
I can tell you that in my opinion, if they do that, that would be the best thing for peace and the best thing for the Confederation itself, because the Israeli government would expose itself as unable to make peace and unable to deal with reasonable
In whose eyes you are talking about?
In the
What
world's
about the
eyes,
Israeli Jews?
there will
Israeli
be,
Jews will accept that.
look, if I am an 18-year-old soldier and I
Yes.
am about to be enlisted, and his mother and his father are about to be enlisted, and the Israeli government would say, we are banning this, even though the father and the mother and the soldier, a potential soldier, see this as a possibility for peace, the government will lose its legitimacy within the people of Israel and Palestine, and will lose its legitimacy worldwide. And it would give exposure to the Confederation and would expose itself as unable to make peace.
You define it as a pro-peace, but from the Israeli government, it's against peace. It's not for peace. It is to force Israel to do something which they are the only body we should decide. That is the idea of the Jewish state.
Okay,
The Jews make the decision about their future and their destiny.
What would
And
be
now
their,
you come and you intervene in this idea.
what
Look,
would
I
be
am
their-
for it. I am for it. I am personally for it. But I'm trying to explain to you that Israeli government and the political right who are the majority among Jews will not tolerate that.
Okay, first of all, Professor SMOOHA, I really appreciate you rolling with me on the logic of this thing. I really appreciate that. And I hope that you're not taking that the hard way. I really am appreciative of the discussion. But let me ask you this. The election will be on the internet. The election will take, if we have 5 million people voting, Israelis and Palestinians voting, and 300 parliament members running and being elected, do you really think that the Israeli government will have the legitimacy to refute the legitimacy of this common government with reasonable explanation?
Yes, they will not hesitate to do that. First of all, they will not let it happen. They will not let you have elections. They can block the internet if this is coming.
Yep.
If they really have, they'll have a survey that a mass of Jews will participate. They will block the internet. I mean, that's the way I see it. They have no problem. Israel has no constitution. Israel has all kinds of, that Israel, since 1948, is in a state of emergency. Still, never they lifted the state of emergency. So the government has all authority to do all kinds of things about human rights, about citizenship rights, and so forth. If they declare it to be a danger to sovereignty of the state, or a danger about subversion, about revolt, whatever. And I think this kind of idea will be considered subversive. And I tell you that the Supreme Court of Israel will have no problem with this.
But I can tell you, if they try to block the internet for 3 months, that would be
Not for 3 months. Not for 3 months. They will have all kinds of way to block, not the internet. They block this effort. They don't have to block the entire internet. Just this election through the internet. That's all they have
Professor
to do.
SMOOHA, let me, before we had democracy, we had a king. And people said, well, the king is not doing a good job. We don't want to have a king. Let's have a democracy. And there were people who were against that. And they said exactly what you're saying. The king will not allow it. The king will not give up on his rule, on his kingdom. And therefore, let's not do anything. But nevertheless, there were gutsy people. There were smart people who said, the king, we should not be afraid of the king. We should do what's right. And what you're saying is the exact same thing that the people said at that time. The king will not allow it. Let's be afraid of the king. And I am saying that we need to do what's right, not be afraid of the king.
Yes, but the king was not elected.
Right.
The government of Israel is elected. There is a popular majority supporting the government. And this majority will accept what the political parties, who voted for, they say, or what the government say, the coalition government will say, and if the government and the political parties in Israel, the Jewish political party, say this is subversive, you will not have a majority for this kind of confederacy.
Okay,
You will not.
let's go to Jesse.
Thank you so much. The first thing is I would just like to say in regards to the vote on the education system, the reason why I did not veto was because they already allow UN schools and nonprofits, international agencies do teaching and things like that. I do have a question. So my question is it why should we not try approach this? I was involved in that election in 2000. Joseph,
can you restate your question? You're dropping out.
Could you please ask your question again?
I'm sorry. My question is to the professor is why can we not try this? Why is this a bad idea to try?
Good question.
Okay. It's a very good question. Because it's a good idea. I'm accepting the idea personally. I think it's not workable. It's hard for me to conceive a situation that any government in Israel, even a left government in Israel, which is something which is really not has a good chances, will accept this idea. But they will accept it once you have a Palestinian state and they want to stabilize the situation. So you have all kinds of cooperation between the states. They will go for that, but not before.
Professor, he's asking why not try it? Are you saying not even try it?
Yes, I don't think it's worth it. It's worth trying. No, not every idea you should try. If you feel that this idea will antagonize the Jews in Israel or Israeli government, and then why should you do that? And I don't see how, and that's another thing. If you show me that a confederacy, now if you establish, will make it easier to settle the 4, 5, or 6 big issues of the conflict, then maybe I'll go with you. I'll go with this. How this idea will promote this settlement of the right of return of refugees.
Oh, it does.
Which is a big question, right? A big question. Right. I tell you, let me just tell you, if you take Belin Husseini's a new proposal of confederacy, right? They have just 2 weeks ago, they started this new idea of confederacy. Now I went into some details of this confederacy. In the confederacy, they allow Israeli settlers to remain in Palestinian state. They said then the big issue of Jewish settlements is resolved because we let them stay there. You don't have to evacuate, which is very difficult to do.
You're confusing his plan with our plan. There is no similarity. I agree with you.
I know, but they are talking about a comprehensive solution. They say the confederacy will make it easier to resolve the conflict. And they say, if you have 500,000 Jewish settlers in the Palestinian state, then you have to allow 500,000 Palestinians to reside in Israel. You know, I mean, Israel, no government in Israel or the Jewish public will vote for such thing. You know, I mean, it's not workable.
We are not solving those issues in terms of land. We are solving it as a democracy with Israeli and Palestinian parliament members reaching a consensus on every issue that would be acceptable to both sides.
You will not reach a consensus in the parliament you are creating, and the prime ministers.
But you don't know that. You don't know
that.
You don't know that. You're just saying it. It's never been tried before. And this is what this gentleman is asking you. Why not try it? He's asking you, and you're saying, because I already know what the future is. And that is unacceptable reasoning.
Because this is not a way to persuade Israeli Jews on the right wing.
We don't want to persuade them. We don't want to persuade them. It's not, that's the whole idea, is to isolate the extremists on both sides. You cannot have the extremists control the agenda.
Who is going to be parliament members?
300 parliament members.
The left wing, they will be. Only the left wing.
You
or
don't
some
know,
moderate,
you don't
but
know
not
that.
on the right wing.
You are just saying it. You don't know that.
We know that.
Don't know that.
No, we know that.
It's never been tried before. You're making this up. You don't know that. You don't know who's going to be.
I'll give you something from my experience.
You don't have an experience like this.
But we have to draw on something, just not just speculation. For example, I give you a very simple example. We try to have a conference on Jewish-Arab coexistence. Okay, something which,
yes.
And people, leaders.
You need to unmute. Professor, you need to unmute.
Sammy, you've muted yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm saying that even for conferences in Israel, in which if the subject is Arab-Jewish relations or cooperation or coexistence, right-wing leaders or spokesmen, anyone, they will not show up. So
Right.
you think
that we're not going to be upset if they don't show up.
So you will have
what we are saying is
you have a parliament of Jews who are on the left, and then you believe if you have leftist parliamentarians, voluntary parliamentarian, the other side will listen, even will not see them as traitors. Traitors, they will see them as traitors.
Okay, let me tell you this.
This
First
is
of
why
all, I do not believe that it is the left wing in Israel that would support this. I do not believe that the right wing will be against it. I believe that people will see that this could make peace and they will make their own judgment. And I think that creating theoretical obstacles does not make sense. But let's go to the next person, and that's Olivia. Olivia?
Okay, thank you, Joseph. And good evening, Professor SMOOHA, hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you very much for being with us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, right. I think I'm the first person that actually agrees with you. You say that macro change has to come about. you say that massive sanctions have to take place, sanctions against Israel. Israel needs a good shaking. Israel needs a slap on the wrist, a slap on the face, whatever you like. Right, I think for that to happen, the US would need to stop its 3.8 billion arms funding. And the UK would also have to change, et cetera, and France, et cetera. So I live in Europe. Most European countries suck up to Israel. They're happy to sell arms. There's obviously a disconnect between the governments and the people. People support people, decently minded people, of which there are many, support the Palestinian cause. Yes, but their governments don't, be they left, right, or whatever, because their governments think of jobs and profit before human rights, okay? But the big player, I think, is the US. Biden, from the beginning, with his meeting with your prime minister, said, oh, we're going to go on being friendly with Israel, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you think this play is going to play out, considering the US? Well, the US arms industry has the most important lobby. They're putting pressure on the government. So it's very complicated, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. There has to be massive sanctions, something that hurts Israelis into changing and getting them out of what you call their comfort zone. Yes, I go along with what you say. Is it because, or might it be because the US has to think of its future role and its rapport with China, Russia, China, and the US? That is the crux of the matter at the moment. And maybe the US will be less interested in the Middle East, but I don't know. I'd like to hear your opinion about that. But I absolutely agree with you. Has to be a change, and there has to be a lessening of fun of arms. 3.8 billion. It's not peanuts. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, you know what you are saying, that the stalemate will continue. Okay, that's what's happening, and Israel is consolidating the situation, the apartheid-like situation in the West Bank. This is what's really happening. I am not advocating sanctions against Israel. I'm not advocating. I said one way that the situation will change if will be international sanctions, which will get the Israelis out of their comfort zone. But can be other ways to get out the Israelis from, if there'll be, say, a new revolutionary Palestinian leaders, which they will recognize Israel, like Sadat, do something dramatic like Sadat. This will change the Israeli opinions. 10 days before Sadat came to Israel, they had polls, opinion polls, show that 90%, 90% of the Jews in Israel were against retreating from Sinai. But after he came, and the Israeli government went along, so Israeli opinion changed. So there are all kinds of things which can happen. I call from the top. Maybe also some impact from grassroots effort. I'm not saying it's completely, but it's mostly from the top.
So no sanctions, no sanctions. What about BDS?
Professor SMOOHA, is it fair to equate the Sinai Peninsula to the West Bank? Do you think this is similar?
No, it's not similar, of course not. But I'm bringing this an example that you can change public opinion by changing policies, by having a big dramatic event. This can be done. I'm saying you cannot do it just because you have a group of 20 people or this kind of rally and so forth. This will change the public opinion.
So wouldn't having an election in which 5 million people voted and 300 parliament members elected, wouldn't that be dramatic enough?
It's dramatic enough, of course, but you cannot have it. You cannot do it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right,
You cannot
let's go to Edward. Sorry. Edward, thank you for your patience. You need to unmute.
I've just unmuted myself. Joseph, what you're advocating is a dream. It's a very nice dream, but the reality, as Sammy has indicated, is that it's an impossible dream. But there are several points. One is, this is not an original idea, okay? Before Israel was created back in 48, Martin Buber and others tried to have a binational, tri-religious state, okay? And it failed. So that's at least one precursor to all this. The second thing is, Sammy is right. The Israeli Knesset has banned political parties and even kicked out parties that were elected in the Knesset. And they've done that on at least 2 occasions. Azmi Bashar had to flee the country. The woman, Hanan, she has stepped down because of the harassment, pressures, and threats against her. But fortunately, the Israeli Supreme Court has set aside those laws. So there's been numerous attempts to totally suppress any alternate voices, and has received the majority support from the Knesset. But thankfully, Israel's Supreme Court has done things. But I want to make a point. There's a structural flaw here that destroys this whole thing. You cannot, if you have an Israeli Knesset and them representing one side, they have multiple parties, okay? And I think, the one success that they've had is that they've created Hamastan, okay? They divided the Palestinians into Gaza and to the West Bank. And that was on purpose. But in order, you have to have Israelis and you have to have Palestinians. You can have Hamas as a party within the Palestinian Authority, but you can't divide it into 3 separate groups. That's a dangerous trap, and it is suicide for the Palestinians, okay? And that's actually what the right-wing Israelis want. And so you have to deal with the practical realities, and Professor SMOOHA is correct on it. Even they manipulate the number of percentage get into the parliament. They didn't allow Islamic parties until it was convenient for them to get rid of the progressive list for peace. That was inconvenient for them. So they're always manipulating things, and there has been almost no Israeli government ever that has done anything for peace. It's only a facade they present and lip service when they keep marching forward with the settlements. They keep attacking Palestinians in Gaza, in Syria, and Lebanon. So it's a charade, okay? And it's not going to work. But I think we have to listen to Professor SMOOHA and understand that the right wing, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, anti-even Christian sentiments and the Zionist establishment in Israel is very, very well entrenched, and it's almost impossible to move. But that's a couple points I wanted to make. But you need to get rid of Hamas, and you have to have Israel and the Palestinian Authority. They can deal with things internally, but you can't split up the Palestinians into 2 separate, political and geographical entities. That is a kiss of death. Okay. Those are my thoughts.
Let me just respond. I don't really think you understood what we are doing, but
I've been studying this issue for 40 years. I published probably 100 articles on it. So
our plan hasn't been around for 40 years.
What?
But
I
none of what you're saying
existed before 1945. The plan existed before you were probably born. Okay, and that's the truth. And you're ignoring that. Okay, you cannot ignore facts.
There was never a plan to create a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine, side by side, the Israeli government and the Palestinian government. But
Martin Buber and others.
But my general response to you is that being cynical of progress is an enemy of progress. If people that did not pay attention to cynicism, they are the one who created progress in this world. But that's my general response. Let's go to Sean. Is Sean available?
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Now, according to what SAMMY SOMA says, that Israel, it's in its comfort zone. right? And in its comfort zone where there's no peace and there's no negotiation. And he's been, from what I understand, he's been saying, how could there be peace when Israel has the upper hand and in its comfort zone? And in order for it to be out of its comfort zone, it has to have peace, but it doesn't want peace. It wants to stay in its comfort zone. This is my question.
What is your question? Could you rephrase it?
What I'm saying is, and what I'm understanding from SAMMY SMOOHA is Israel is in its comfort zone. In its comfort zone, it doesn't want peace. So how can Israel want peace if it doesn't want to get out of its comfort zone?
Well, he's saying that something else has to happen to make it come out of his comfort zone.
Yes, and in its comfort zone, there's no peace in its comfort zone.
Right.
That's right. That's the idea.
Professor SMOOHA, you want to respond?
I think he's right. I mean, as long as the Jews are in the comfort zone with regard the conflict, they are not motivated to make compromises to the Palestinians, and they are not motivated to take risks, because any settlement requires taking risks on the part of Israeli Jews, who are fearful, because the Jews in Israel, since 1948, they are living under threat of the Arabs or Muslims. Now it's mostly it's Iran, which is Muslim, not Arabs. But still, I mean, they fear, and the idea in Israel is you have to be strong. You have to build a war machine, a big war machine. That's the idea. Otherwise, you will not survive in a hostile environment that in Israel finds itself in. Now, how you change the situation? I gave a couple of examples. International sanctions, or a big change among the political right leadership, or a big change among the Palestinians. Maybe earthquake, I don't know. I mean, all kinds of big changes that we need to shake the situation, that people will be out of the comfort zone.
All right, let's go to Abraham, Dr. Weisfeld, and then Shiraz. We have interpreters, so they've been working hard now for over 2 hours. So if you don't mind, keep your questions short, and Professor SMOOHA, if you can be cognizant of the fact that we need to close very soon because we have interpreters. Dr. Weisfeld.
Thank you. The binationalist current of cultural Zionists, so-called, failed, because it didn't cope with the question of the state. And the status, in the Zionist movement took over from there. And the, others, like Hans Cohen and Einstein quit the Zionist movement as a result of the statist tendency having dominance. The question is, how to overcome the state. And this is what a confederation does. It is, something like a constituent assembly, which deals with the methodology. And along those lines, I would like to make a proposal for an amendment or an addition, modification to the section on the judiciary, and ask the assembled, excuse me, to consider a mechanism that is accommodating to all concerned and could not be denied, and in fact is inevitable because it is so logical. Because if you have any dispute submitted to a trilateral commission, that is one Israeli judge, one Palestinian judge, and a third judge that is chosen by consensus of the first two judges, could be an international judge. Such a trilateral commission based upon a consensus of opinion can resolve, the issues presented for the possession of private lands, etc., deeds, etc. All that could be resolved along that mechanism. What we have here is a methodology not only for writing a constitution, but for resolving civil disputes. We are representative of civil society, not of the state. This is something different.
So what's your question?
Can we adopt the proposition for trilateral commission to resolve disputes of between private parties and between institutions as well?
According to the IPC Constitution, in order to have a decision against Palestinians, you need 2 Palestinian judges to decide against a Palestinian. And in order to decide against Israeli, you would need 2 Israeli. In other words, you would need majority of Israelis judges against Israeli, majority Palestinian judges against Palestinian, and then they have the right to appeal to the separate Israeli and Palestinian courts. All right, let's go to Shiraz.
Yeah, hi.
Hello, Shiraz.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. My question is, does Israel want to be a member of European Union? And do you think, Professor, that United States is using Israel as a military base, and now that Egypt has become part of United States military base, does United States think that they need Israel? So do you think if Israel will become a member of European Union, and therefore would it allow Israelis to move to Europe and Canada and USA? Thank you.
Are you asking if Israel becomes a member of the European Union, would that strain relation with the United States?
Yeah, and would it be a member anyway? Yeah.
Okay.
Why does Israel want to be a member of the European Union? Yeah.
Professor.
Can I respond? Can I respond to that? Hello?
Yeah, do you believe that there is a conflict here? Israel wants to be a member of the European Union, but yet it has a special relation with the United States.
Yes, but there is a problem of Israel being part of the European Union, because in the European Union, any person in Europe who belongs to the Union can move from one country to another with full rights. Israel will not allow such things to happen. So Israel wants to be a member, economic member, a scientific member, all kinds of members, but will not allow any mass immigration of Gentiles to Israel. So that's a problem. So Israel will not become a member of the EU. So this will not strain the relations, because it will not be a real member of the EU.
Yeah, that's okay. That clarifies the issue very well. All right, let me make a closing remark. We believe that this Confederation government could be created, that the internet could help it become a reality, just like paper made it easier for democracy to vote. We believe that we need grassroots financial support. You can donate at ipconfederation.org. And we need more education and recruiting candidates for parliament and president. And we're asking that you share the vision in social media and continue to participate in future simulation. I would like to thank, let me stop sharing. I would like to thank Professor SMOOHA for, well, let me ask you this. Do you think I was too harsh on you?
The other way around. Maybe I was too harsh on you.
Oh.
Not you on me.
No, not at all.
Really?
I really enjoyed the conversation with you. I thought it was, you know, I get a lot of comments at the end because I tend to be a little too aggressive, and people say, well, you were too harsh. So I wanted to clarify that. So I'm glad. I know
you were not. or harsh on me, not
Yeah.
at all. But let me just have a closing remark. I am a leftist. I am a Zionist. For me, I am not in the comfort zone. For me, the Palestinian question is something which is painful to me. I mean, I would like Israel to be a fair state, a good democracy, and so forth. And ruling other people, it's evil. And we have to discontinue evil making, as Israel is doing. So the idea of confederacy, I think it's a good idea after resolving the issues of the conflict, not before. It's a premature idea. And I think we have to work on finding solutions to the conflict. Now, let me say something which shows that it's difficult to reach a two-state solution. I'm not that I don't understand the reality. There are issues in most of the issues about the conflict, there is agreement between left and right in Israel. There is a national consensus among Jews, despite all you talk about the split in Israel between left and right. The left and right in Israel, they accept the idea that not going back to the pre-67 borders. They agree on that. They agree on the idea that no right of return for the Palestinians. They agree on the question of undivided Jerusalem. They agree on the question that if there will be a Palestinian state, it won't be fully sovereign. There will be all kinds of restrictions on this. Any issue, you find more agreement between left and right in Israel than between Israelis and Palestinians. So we have to shake public opinion, both the Palestinians and the Jews, in order that they can come together. One way, I said all kinds of ways, but not by talking like us. We are not really to affect. We'll have no impact. Even when I speak and I write and so on, I feel I have really no impact. That's what I'm saying. So I'm thinking of the emergence of courageous and visionary leaders among both sides. This is one, maybe some sanctions about Israel, which the people will feel the conflict in their pockets, that they cannot continue. I don't know, all kinds of things we can think of that will change the situation, but unfortunately, I am a sociologist. I should always think, what people do and so forth. No, I feel that there are questions, intractable conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that you need a macro forces from above to change the situation, and then people will respond to the new situation. You have to change the situation, and then people will change their opinions.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor SMOOHA. We enjoyed having you. You're a real gentleman. I am very appreciative of you being with us and giving us your opinion. And I hope you join us again some other time.
And I wish you bring some right-winger to your stimulation.
Well, let me ask you
people
this.
who are really right-wing, Israeli Jews.
Would you consider, we had...
I saw all the list of people you brought are on the left or left center, not really on the right wing, because the right wing, they are not interested in all this.
Well, I would very much appreciate if you can email me names of people that you want to be in the simulation.
We had
Okay,
Alan
thank you.
Dershowitz.
Yeah. Okay, please be in contact, remain in contact, send me names of people that you think will be, would love to have them.
I give you a name. Take Begin, you know, the son of Menachem Begin.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
know him.
parliament member.
Yes.
And he's opinionated and also open to all kinds of
Do
ideas.
you have his email address?
You go to the Knesset and you'll find his name and his contact information.
Is he a Knesset member now?
Yes, he's a Knesset member.
Okay.
And he is in Tikva Hadasha, you know, the
Yeah,
new
no,
hope.
I can tell you that we send many, many invitations, and most Israelis and most Palestinians on the left and on the right avoid us like the plague, because it's a new way of resolving, and they want to have it resolved either in an Israeli way or Palestinian way. They don't want new ways. They're afraid of this. But this is another conversation. Thank you so much, Professor SMOOHA. We enjoyed having you, and I'll contact Mr. Begin.
Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you
And
so much.
invitation.
And goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.